Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Capturing Your Love Show, where we talk about everything relationships, weddings, marriage, and so much more. We have a phenomenal couple on with us right now, my family, Kara and Cory Meyer. Dog parents, Cory, a product manager at Phoenix Contact, and Kara, a social worker at New Story School. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to jump right into some deep questions. Are you ready? You want to go for it?
Of course.
Yeah. So let's start off easy on the deep questions. What does marriage mean to you?
I think it's commitment is the biggest thing of finding someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with and do life with together. And just that commitment, knowing it's real and not just something you rush into to have the title or have the ring, but you know, someone you want to do life with. And it's obviously not rainbows all the time, but it's, you know, finding someone that's there for the ups and downs. And the biggest thing I think is the partner part in life is, you know, life's not easy and there's a lot of stuff to do and you need the right one with you.
Mm-hmm.
I would say compromise and just someone to have fun with.
Yeah.
And fun.
Yeah.
Very important.
Fun's important.
Marriage should be fun. And the commitment thing is huge. The one step before marriage is, a couple actually was talking about this our last episode. A lot of people get wrapped up into the, you know, doing everything except for committing part. Like, you know, whatever it may be. So the commitment part is really what separates those from the pack.
Yeah.
So how do you two think that marriage differs today in your eyes compared to maybe your parents or your grandparents or your great-grandparents? What are the differences and what are the similarities?
I would say from seeing some other couples, they're just not as committed to their marriage as like our parents would have been. And ironically, I was just with my grandparents this morning and they said they've been married for 65 years, which is crazy to me.
You got to get them out on the show.
Yes.
That'd be a good one.
Yes. I just think lack of commitment is a big thing. Lack of commitment and
Yeah, I think it's that. I think there's some changes in society and just the way things are, that it's not trust, and again, we're saying commitment a lot, but isn't as important as it used to be. And I think it's a different world though too. I mean, I think marriage is happening later now. You know, our parents, our grandparents were getting married out of high school essentially, and now, you know, college and masters and whatnot is so prevalent that there's just a lot more going on. But I agree with that. I think there's some unfortunate changes where trust and commitment isn't valued as much in a lot of marriages. And I think people, since life's kind of starting later with college and stuff being so prevalent now, I think people rush into it and don't, you know, I think you see a lot of marriages that happen after whatever, a year, not even a year being together. And that's, I don't know, at least to me, that's crazy. That, you know, we're almost 10 years till we got married. And I think that's important to, you know, just feel like you can't really know someone in 8 months. But
I feel like you have to live with someone before really knowing them.
I agree. And I think that's a positive change. I feel like for our parents and our grandparents, that was a big no-no, you know, not to live with someone till you're married. But I agree. I think that's huge because, you know, even us, we had a lot of fights, if you will, nice fights when we moved in together.
Disagreements.
Because, you know, people are different. And I think that's a good change that's happening, is living together. And there's probably a lot of would-be marriages that kind of crash and burn at that point, because I think that's important. Yeah. You learn a lot about a person when you live with them.
So on the flip side, would you say that those who believe you should be filtering out those sooner than later, rather than, like, obviously you want to figure out if you're compatible with someone, see if you can live with them and see if you guys can live in harmony and live in peace. Do you think that there should be like a more stressed effort at figuring out if that individual should even go through that process before you even get into that process? Because how long could the process take? How long would you let that process take just to call it off? What kind of time are you losing out on or winning out on? Like, where do you guys feel like is the threshold to filter out an individual when you're dating, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, I think as corny as it sounds, a love at first sight thing. I mean, when you know, you know. I mean, I knew very early that, you know, she was going to be my wife eventually, but I think it depends on the situation, you know. Like for us, we started dating when I was halfway through college. Like, obviously we're not going to move in then, but if you're in a situation where, you know, you think you're falling in love and you're 26, probably an expedited process on the move-in part. So I think it would really depend on where you are in your life and when that relationship starts on the move-in. But, you know, I feel like if you know, you know, and if the opportunity's there to move in, I don't see why you wouldn't want to as soon as possible to start that process, because like you said, it takes time to flesh all that out and whatnot. But I think it doesn't take long living together to figure out where the issues are going to be.
Yeah.
That's the point.
And how you navigate through them.
Exactly.
Not only the fact that they're there, but can you figure them out?
Exactly.
That's a big part.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it was a big no-no for like grandparents, like parents and grandparents. Do you think it becoming a little more accepted or culturally accepted, do you think that is net positive or net negative? Would you say that there are more couples who are doing that and then ending up together, or are there more couples who are doing that and then not committing to one another and then not marrying and then end up splitting? Where do you think the net positive lands?
I feel like there's been more positive with living with someone before you get married.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our friends lived with each other before they got married, and they seem to be having happy, healthy relationships. We also have some friends who are married but weren't allowed to live with their significant other just because of culture and religion and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's more positive. You just get to know the person better, and you're with them a lot more than you would be if you don't live with them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more than, on the surface we're talking about living together and dumb things like cleaning and tidiness, but I think it's a lot more than actually living together. Like you said, Tony, learning how you deal with it, learning how to compromise, learning, do things for each other. I think it's the act of living together, but the stuff that comes of it is obviously a lot deeper than, I don't think someone's just crashing and burning because Kara's a slob. It's more, how do we talk about it? How do we, how do we talk about it? How do we learn through it? So I think it's a positive. I mean, I don't know that there's ever really a negative to that other than, like you said, there's religious aspects and culture aspects where people don't think it's proper. But I think if you're doing it properly and not rushing, it's definitely a net positive, I'd say.
So you guys have been married 4 months, 28 days.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Look at you.
Yeah,
Wow.
Very cool. So you may have learned things along the way, since October, but you've been together for almost 10 years, over 10 years. And what would you say is the thing you learned the most post-marriage, but the most during that pre-marriage state when you were growing as a couple? What did you learn about one another when it comes to partnership, working as a team, navigating communication through challenges? What are some things that you could share as like your biggest learning points?
Well, we moved in together in our house in 2019, right?
Yeah.
And before that, we were close. Like, we were both in Lancaster for multiple years. But I don't know. I personally don't think much has changed since we got married because we were living together. We already had our dogs. We were already really close with each other's families. So I personally don't think that much has changed since we got married. Just a ring on my finger now.
Yeah, I agree. Post-marriage hasn't really been any different. I mean, new last name, and I'm wearing a ring, and she's a second ring. But
yeah, everyone
like
Everyone always asks, like, "Oh, how's the married life?" And my response every time is literally, "Oh, it's the same since we before we got married." So I think
it was more moving in. That was probably the biggest step where we really kind of learned a lot about each other, and because it's easy when you're together for a couple of days, and then I go my way, she goes her way. If you need a break, but you don't get that when you're married and you live together. I shouldn't say when you're married, when you live together. And I think that probably moving in together was more of the change and learning and stuff, and we have very different styles with that. I mean, I'll admit I'm a freak. I definitely have OCD with my neatness and stuff, and she's kind of the other end of the spectrum. So that's a continued learning process for both of us. But I think it was definitely more the moving in together than it was the marriage, because I wouldn't say anything has really changed other than we haven't learned anything different. I think I'll pat ourselves on the back that I think we got married at the right time and had everything figured out when we did, and it was really just time.
I like that. So why do you value marriage?
I'm saying it a million times, but I think it's just the commitment, it's a big step, to commit to someone for the rest of your life. And I think, again, I feel like culture is changing a little bit. We're like, you don't have to get married, we're in like the stuff of open relationships or whatever it may be. And I think it's, that commitment to say that we found our person and that's our person. We're committed to just us. And I think that's really cool to, not have eyes for anyone else forever.
Yeah. And there's just always someone there. Like, you always have that person to good day, bad day,
Mm-hmm.
anything in between.
Did you guys have different views of marriage when you came to the table as, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends? Like, did one of you want marriage and the other one not? Did they differ at all?
No, we
so.
both.
Pretty lockstep with that. We
Yeah.
knew we didn't want it to be quick, and
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want to get married too early.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Didn't want to get married 2 months after we got engaged.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we were pretty lockstep
Cool.
with the
Yeah.
whole life plan thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents were kind of the same too. Both had the same beliefs, and they were ready as they could have been to get us married.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. So what would you two tell someone who maybe right out of high school, up until your ages right now? What would you tell someone who wants to prepare themselves to like be a better gentleman or be a better lady, so that they are dateable and in the future marriageable? I don't know. What would you tell them and encourage them with to like let them know, like, hey, this is how you should prepare yourself?
I think you nailed it with gentlemen. I mean, that might sound like a 7-year-old man, but I think a lot of that's dying with, again, I sound old, but, like TikTok and stuff, and just the new vibe is how some guys are, what I mean, where it's cool to be with a million girls and don't respect them and, don't treat them well. And that's, that might work for a couple days in college, but when it comes to actually getting a partner and getting married, like, I think, be a gentleman, open the door, do stuff like that, and be someone that, and also supportive too. Obviously not say anything like, women aren't strong or anything, but, still be a gentleman and be supportive and be the man in the house and help with stuff like that. And I think that's, and you know it too, someone always there, don't be distant, and on the other side, be able to be a little squishy and talk about things and have conversations. I think just what you said, be a gentleman. And
I would say to be a listener. Don't always talk about yourself, and be willing to ask questions about the other person to get to know them.
I like that.
Yeah.
Not only listen, but be a good thinker too, because sometimes we forget that we should be thinking and considering the other person.
Yep.
It's one thing to say like, hey, how are you doing today?
And
But
then,
before that comes the thought, I wonder how they're doing today. It gets you to asking it.
Right.
That's a good point. How do you two think that digital communication has affected relationships and dating? And talk a little bit about the pros and the cons. So if you compare it to like our grandparents or our great grandparents, like either pen and paper, they were meeting up in person, they were seeing each other in school. Now it's all digital. So talk about the pros and cons of it.
I think it's negative. I think like back in our parents, they, like you said, they had to make a phone call. They had to go walk and see them, whereas people are hiding behind their phones. Like if I just wanted to talk to somebody and text them, I feel like that's not as like intimate or thoughtful as talking to them in person or on the phone or going to see them. So I would say social media isn't not too many positives for relationships and marriage, but I mean, it's a good way to quickly check in with somebody if need be. But
yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. I think when you are past, like, you and Bryn, me and Kara, obviously we're married, we know each other very well, we spend a ton of time together. I think it's positive once you get to that point. Like I, not as much anymore, but used to travel a lot, so it was nice at that point. If it was the 50s, I would go 7-8 days and not say a word to, maybe a phone call here and there, but I can, when I'm traveling, I get to text her all day and can FaceTime her at night. I'm sure you love that with Eden when you're when you're gone to see her. So I think when utilized properly, it's nice, but it's embarrassing to say live, but we watch Catfish a lot. And it's unbelievable that we see couples, but these people are like, I've been in a relationship for 4 years and they've never met the person. That's exactly where obviously it's not utilized properly and people can hide behind it. So I agree with everything you said, but I think when you're to that point in your life where you are married, or not just married, but you're in a real relationship, I think it can be beneficial to be able to chit-chat throughout the day or when you're traveling or something.
that's a good answer.
Thanks.
There was a couple who had mentioned that an added positive layer was how their relationship strengthened from sharing memes and exchanging humorous photo and video, where it was like, people think about like, oh, it's dangerous because you could be someone you're not, pretend to be someone you're not, talk to a million people. But this genuine couple was like, well, we learned what each other's humor is through just binging, sending videos to one another really quickly. So that's a huge pro in our relationship. I thought that was a phenomenal, like, refreshing perspective. I wouldn't have really thought about that. It's very easy to understand, like, the very common, like, huge negatives. Like, digital communication is, like, sometimes I always think, like, oh, this is net negative. But when you think about the positives of being able to connect whenever you want and share, you know, similar like things that you both like and enjoy looking at, there's a net positive there.
Yeah.
So in terms of dating specifically, what key challenges do you think modern couples today, couples dating this time, are what key differences do you think they had compared to our great grandparents and on when dating for their boyfriend or girlfriend, trying to learn who one another are? What are those challenges that are caused by this digital landscape?
I think honestly they don't get to know each other off the bat, if that makes sense, because I feel like, probably not you as much because I didn't really follow you, but there's people that I would consider I like knew a decent amount about, like in college, that I maybe met once or twice, on social media. And I've kind of recently done a bit, not a binge, a flush of my social media of like, I don't even know you, get on following, but like, like, I don't know if you followed me, like you probably had a pretty good idea of who I was before you even met me, where back before that was a thing, you don't know a single thing. Like if someone looked at my social media, they, it's mostly you tagging me and stuff, but they would know, before they even met me, they would know a lot about me, probably, what I do for work, my hobbies are, who I'm married to, what we do for fun, where before that you met someone and it was, who are you? So I think, and that's, again, that can be positive too. It can give a lot of things to talk about, but I think it takes away some of that getting to know you side.
That was a good answer
too. Yeah, I would agree and say, well, it could be negative, it could be positive, but it could be positive in a way where if you're looking for someone to date, if you're single and you're in a position where you want to start dating, and you see someone's profile, if it's lacking, then they may not be considered. But if it's populated with something where, oh, this person's out hiking, I like hiking. Oh, this person's snowboarding, I like snowboarding. It then gets their, as that individual who's looking for someone to start to date, it gets them to that next level of, maybe I should interact, maybe I should reach out. And on the flip side, if I'm not a hiker, so no, I'm not a snowboarder, no, I don't like going out, so no, it helps them then realize this person might not be someone who has similar values and hobbies. So I would say there's a pro in that sense too on the flip side.
I totally agree.
So in terms of independence versus togetherness, how do you two balance personal growth as individuals and growth as a married couple? What tactics do you guys use, if any?
I think we're pretty good, or we're pretty good at pushing each other. Maybe me a little more sometimes with you, but just step out of your comfort zone and do things.
Yeah,
but I think,
struggle with that. So,
but I think we're strong with that. I mean, you've always been supportive of what I want to do and my goals, and I try and do the same. So I think personally we're pretty good at that. I mean, definitely you've always supported me with that stuff, so I would agree, or think that we are.
And I think communication goes into that too. If I disagree about something that he's doing, or think that he can do better at something, well, we can talk about it and figure it out together. But
and I think it's also having the ability, again, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, to as a husband or a wife, to have those hard conversations and push them. Like, for example, she hates interviewing, but it was time to get a new job, and she ended up absolutely killing it and getting a great job. So but she wasn't, you didn't want to, and we had to push a little bit, but once you did it, you killed it. So I think it's being able to have those uncomfortable conversations of, you're not going to like it, you're going to get mad at me, but you got to do this. And I think that's a big part of it too. And that alone then helps the marriage growth too. You have those individual situations that when you go through it as a couple, it organically helps the marriage growth then too.
Yeah, and he sometimes tells me things that I don't want to hear, but I need to hear, like with getting a new job. So he does a really good job at telling me nicely the things that I need to hear, but to push me to be better. So
that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of your job, I'm very curious. I've heard tidbits, stories here and there, but you've experienced quite a unique amount on your end as a social worker, and I would guess that social workers in general experience a very unique reality
Oh, yeah.
compared to the general public. Cast a light on what that looks like. Like, what attracted you to social work, and B, like, once you were in it and in the thick of it, like, what was the reality? What did it look like?
So when I was in college, I had no clue what I wanted to do. My first year seminar teacher was kind of pushing me towards social work, and I did at that time know that the thing I knew that I wanted to do was just to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, I didn't really know much about social work, so she kind of guided me and pushed me to take the classes, do social work internships. And then my first year out of college, I was a school therapist, so I did one-on-one with elementary schoolers. And now I'm at New Story Schools, which is an alternative school for kids with autism and behavioral needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I specifically do not go into the homes, so I don't see that home life with my eyes. But talking with families and seeing the kids at school, kind of how they come in, hearing stories about what their home life is like, we see there's a lot of poverty in working with social work. I've been finding that a lot of my students' parents are struggling with not only poverty, but also with they don't know how to advocate for themselves. So the parents don't know, like, they might know they need help, but they don't know how to go about getting that help. So that's where social work comes in. So I get to know about the parent, I get to know about the student, everything about their home situation, their family. And then I help them advocate for the services that they need. So, for example, there could be a mom living at home with 3 kids. So, single mom, one struggling with money. So, I help them apply for, like, food stamps. Or if they're struggling with behavior at home, there's services that can come into the home to work with kids that have those behavioral needs. But a lot of the parents don't even know those services are out there.
Yeah.
So, it's more of, like, the social worker explaining to them that these services are available and how to go about getting these services, which is a very lengthy process for a lot of them.
How do you make that first contact? Like, do you just cold call them? Like, what's going on?
Hey, do you need help?
So what my job started having me do is when we have a student come in, I call every single parent and do a mental health history intake, which I ask, have you ever had these services? Do you currently have these services? And half the time, they don't even know what the services are. So that's when I can, like, ask the questions, like, how are things going at home? Like, is there anything that you need? So a lot of the parents open up and just tell me, like, what's going on at home. They're struggling with money or whatever it might be. So that form that I have in front of me is a great help when I'm calling that parent and saying, like, hey, do you have this service, this service, this service? This is what this service can do for you. But then there are situations where a student might come in and tell us something about them being abused or neglected.
Is that common?
Yes. So I do have to do a lot of childline reports, so children and youth referrals. But that's where it becomes tricky because we usually like to reach out to the parent and just, like, let them know, like, hey, this is what's going on, just so that they're not blindsided. So that's a tricky conversation to have because nobody wants children and youth in their home, but sometimes it's necessary because children and youth can also help you get those services. And a lot of the time, families just kind of think children and youth is in their life to take their kids from them, and that's not the case at all. Like I said, they can go in and help them get the services. If they're having trouble with housing, they can help them with housing. They can help them figure out a place that they can apply for cheaper rent or anything of that kind. So
what's the criteria for the parents? Like, is it just financial? Is that it? Or do they have to check a bunch of boxes? Like, you know what I mean? Like
for children and youth?
I'm just super curious. And obviously we could talk about this more, like, afterwards. But, like, could anyone just be like, yeah, I want all your services? Or do they have to check some boxes?
They have to check some boxes. So there has to be, in order for a children and youth referral to be placed, it has to be some sort of abuse or neglect. So I can even make a children and youth referral if the student has 10 plus unexcused absences, which means that they're truant. So 10 absences means that they're truant from school. Now, they can have parent excused absences, but unexcused means that the parent didn't reach out, didn't tell us that the student wasn't coming in. So it has to be, in order for me to make a referral, it has to be some sort of abuse or neglect, and then they go into the home, figure out what's going on with the abuse and neglect, but then also can dive deeper and say, like, you might need help with this, let's help you get this, let's help you get this service. So they can go into the home, whereas I'm not permitted to with my current position, so they can kind of dive deeper into that home situation.
And how's the new job been?
It's good. It's crazy. I always have some fun stories, some really, really tough kids, but
Some
a lot
wounds.
of some wounds, yeah.
What are you talking about?
All the staff have to be trained to restrain kids when they are hurting themselves or others, just to keep everybody safe. So sometimes that results in staff getting bit or scratch marks or pinch marks. So it's craziness, but the day goes fast, and there's really never a dull moment. But then there's also times where a student is doing so well that they're permitted to go back to their district. So it's like a happy ending for them, and we did that for them. We helped them with that. So there's some positive, there's some negatives, but overall I like it. It's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I know we mentioned Cory pushed you into getting into this new position, but so when your days are like pushed to the limit, like you're pushed to the max, what ways does he come in hot? Like a practical ways, what little things does he do that really helps you out when your days are like pushed to the max, pushed to the limit?
He's very motivational and just kind of reminds me that what I'm doing is helping those in need. We always talk about our jobs, and he's like, I work with money, but you're helping the world. But he also supports me with all of my like after work activities. So like I coach soccer, I play soccer, and that's like a good stress reliever for me. So he's very supportive in that sense, where he's just like, go coach, play soccer, comes to my soccer games, comes to my coaching games. So very supportive and talks me through it.
Yeah, power hubby right there. Let's go. Cool. And then I guess in the inverse, what little things does Kara do? I'm just curious, that helps you out when your days are pushed to the max.
I think just being there and being a friend at the end of the day. I mean, she isn't as, doesn't, not in a bad way, of course, but doesn't really understand a lot of things that I do for work. But, to the point where she can't be like, oh, no, this is going to work out like this and this is going to happen, which is fine. She's not supposed to. But And you don't try. I mean, in a good way. Like, she's just, if she knows I have a stressful day or I'm going through something, she'll just, be there when the day's over to cuddle and watch a movie and just be fun and goofy, when there's nothing like getting off a stressful call or going through a bunch of stuff and then coming home and she's her goofy self, and it's just, kind of lets the stress go away right away. So I think it's just being there for me. Doesn't always have to be the talk it through it. It's just being her silly, goofy self there, and lets me vent, and then is just there.
Yeah, I like that.
I think we've also recently, shouldn't say recently, but are learning when each other needs space. So sometimes I'm really irritated about something, and there's times where he's kind of just asking me questions on top of that, and I just kind of want to take a break and not talk to anybody or do anything. But we're getting really good at understanding when each other need that. So I think that that's something that we've been improving on.
Yeah. I'm still learning that in my marriage. Too.
Yeah.
It is hard. You just want to.
You always want to help.
You good?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is tough, but yeah, we've kind of literally pretty much started. I can tell you're a little hot and bothered right now. Just come get me when you're good, and we've gotten very good at that. And I think that's saved a lot of arguments, but it is hard because you do just, especially when you see they're sad or they're upset, you want to, make it all better. But sometimes you do just need to take a breath.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, you guys have been married for a little over 4 months. Take us back all the way to the beginning of your love story. What was the first, point of contact like that led up to the first in-person date?
So it was a long time ago, but I went to college together, obviously. So it was going into my junior year, her senior year. She's a year older than me. And through early college, we didn't really know each other. Mutual friends, and we didn't go to a big school, so we had obviously seen each other around, and again had mutual friends, but both were either in another relationship or just doing our own thing. But then again, going into junior year that summer, we had a mutual friend that you were hanging out with, I think, and of course was like, wow, that Cory kid is adorable. No, but she had asked our mutual friend if, you know, I was single, and I was at the time, and she asked for my number or said something. It got to the point that the girl had texted me and said, hey, you know, Kara has some interest in you, you know, and I know about her. I found her very attractive, and she she reached out and said that she was interested. So I was like, oh yeah. So shot her a text, and we kind of spent the rest of that summer. It wasn't, I want to say it was like August, so it wasn't like it was months. It was probably a couple weeks till we got back to school. And then when we got back to school, we kind of, I guess, officially met, you know, and actually talked to each other for the first time. And 3 or 4 months of kind of, you know, what the kids call talking, where we weren't official. And then it was that December we officially started dating. And then that was pretty much it. We dated for until then, so that would have been 2015. And then we dated, then we moved in together in 2019. I bought a house, and you moved in right away. And then yeah, that was all she wrote after that. So,
awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
been a long time, but yeah, it wasn't anything extravagant, but just worked out. We gelled right away pretty much, and it's been easy in a good way.
So started dating, and what were the things that you started doing together activity-wise that allowed you to grow towards one another, learn about one another?
I think sports immediately connected us.
I was entering my senior year of soccer season. So we meshed on that end because he played lacrosse at college. I played soccer. But we also partied on the weekends, like in college you do. We didn't live far from each other. We were both off campus, but it was pretty close. So we spent a lot of time together outside of sports and school itself, and got to know each other's friends. I became really good friends with his friends. He became really good friends with my friends, the people that we lived with. Yeah, it was...
Yeah, I think there's a lot in common. We both had shitty coaches at the time, and we're dealing with that. So I think
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
we gelled a lot. Yeah. That, you know, her fall season of soccer, when we first started talking, you know, she was dealing with a bad coach and a rough situation, and then into that spring season, I had a coach that I didn't mesh too well with my career, and she helped me then, you know, going into that season. So I think that was a big thing too that really brought us together. But
yeah,
a lot of similarities and mutual friends. That was really helpful. You know, it's not like I had to leave my friends to go hang out with Kara, and she had to leave her friends to come hang out. Like, all of our friends were already together, so that made it really easy too.
We're both big family people too. So he hangs out with his entire family all the time, and I come home whenever I can to hang out with our family very often. But I think just having that in common too was extremely helpful, seeing that he thought the same way I did about family.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that was important too, and made a lot of our decisions easy. You know, we have a lot of friends that, you know, kind of pick up and move or go here and there, and that was never a question for us. You know, we knew we were going to be in a come home for this or dinner, drivable distance to our families at all times. So, you know, obviously it landed a little close to mine, but still, that was never, you know, we were never like, oh, let's go live in California for a year. Like that was never a conversation that we had to have, or she wanted to do that and I didn't or anything. So that was good.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to jump into how you planned the proposal a bit, but big question, what qualities did you see in Kara that shifted your brain to go, I really want to marry this girl?
I don't think there's ever a shift, to be totally honest. I mean, obviously, you know, when we first started talking, I was 20, 19 in college. Like, I wasn't even, marriage is gross, but, you know, I never had to, you know, it never, of course, when it wasn't a thought, it wasn't a thought. But then when we graduated and, you know, started in the real world, I just kind of knew at all times that she was going to be the one. We have I get made fun of, but this was, I want to say I was still in college or a year out of college. I was with buddies at a concert. And, you know, we were drinking and having fun. And I was like, it was literally when we were pretty fresh into dating. And my one buddy, I was telling him about her. And I was like, yeah, dude, she's the one. And we were together for like, I don't know, 8-9 months at that point, which I guess is a decent amount of time. But they were making fun of me. Like, you're drunk saying she's the one. And I just knew, you know. So it was never a question for me of if, it was just when, you know, and I don't think either of us were in a rush, but there was never, you know, there wasn't a flip in the head where it was like, oh wow, I do want to marry her. It was kind of, when I fell in love with her, I knew it was going to be her. It was just when it was going to happen, when the time was right. So
You're supposed to say what you like about me.
Oh, am I? We've covered all that. No, it was just.
I'm kidding.
No, it's.
There are qualities that drew you to her.
Yeah, I think it's everything we've said. I mean, she's my best friend. She's not just my wife or my partner. She's my best friend, and I think that's so important. You know, there's so many aspects of marriage, but at the end of the day, you know, you spend a lot of time with them and do life with them, like we said, you know, a couple minutes ago, and I think that was just. We never force conversation. We never feel awkward. We're fine to be quiet, which is normal. You know, we can sit at dinner sometimes and not talk, or, you know, ride in the car and not talk. And I think that's important. You know, just she's my best friend off the bat. And, you know, the love part just came easy because I think our similarities are good too. Being, you know, I think athlete was important. We had that in common, and just our goals. And we just lined up very, very well. So it was always just easy. And she's very caring, and, you know,
There we go. I'm fun.
she's yeah, no. You know it. But yeah, and the fun part too. That was another thing. Like she said, we still, you know, just last night we were out partying and having fun. So I think that was a big point too. Is we have a lot of fun together, and I think that's crucially important. So.
Yeah, fun. So tell me about the proposal. I want to hear both perspectives. How did it happen? Who planned it? Who executed it? What was it like?
Should I go first and
Well, I would
talk
hope
about
that you
my
didn't
perspective?
know anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I help you guys with photography sometime. I do photography for myself sometimes. So Cory has a coworker who has been dating a girl for multiple years now. I never met the coworker, but I know who he is. And Cory asked me if I could take pictures of their proposal at a winery in Wrightsville, which is near Lancaster. And I get nervous for when people ask me to do proposal shoots because I'm scared I'm going to miss the moment. So I was already freaking out about that. And then Cory was like acting weird in the sense that he always like fiddles with my rings, but particularly fiddling with my ring finger ring, saying like pulling it off and saying, "Oh, this looks tiny," and like just really messing around.
I'll
with
cover
it.
that part.
Super strange. So then the day comes where, and nothing else was like weird to me. It was just that piece. And then on the way to the winery, because I made sure that he was coming with me because I was so nervous, he put his jacket on the backseat floor, which I thought was weird. Like, why on the floor? Why weren't you wearing it? I don't know. It was just really strange. So then we get there, and I'm still fully anticipating this couple coming in 10 minutes. And I'm in panic mode because I'm taking pictures of him trying to get my lighting, my settings correct. And it's not working. You know how I am when I'm like panic when it's not, I can't get it. So it was like really bright and I was freaking out. And then he was like, "Well, why don't I try?" And still wasn't thinking. I handed it to him. He knows nothing about cameras. Like, how was he going to fix it? So he's standing there pretending to take a picture of me. And then he lays the camera down and he's like, "So this proposal isn't for my friend, it's for us." And then that's when it happened. So yeah. I was surprised. But thinking back on it, I was like, he was fiddling with my rings. I think the ring was in his jacket pocket on the back floor. So
yeah, so fill in the gaps there. So where did it start on your end, and how did we get to the winery?
Yeah, so I obviously we had hit the point that it was time to, you know, we'd been living together and we knew, and we weren't the couple that like talked about it too much or planned it. You know, some couples are kind of plan that a lot, but I got my master's degree I was finishing my master's degree that year, and you know, we had been together for a long time, so everyone was like, "When are you going to propose? When are you going to propose?" And I'd always said, you know, I wanted to buy a house and I wanted to finish my master's degree, and that was kind of the why I did it when I did it, because I wasn't finishing till that August. So, you know, I thought if I finish, then she's really going to be expecting it. So I thought I'd expedite a little bit and hopefully catch her off guard. So that's why I made the time decision. But the ring was, I'm not like a jewelry guy at all, and you know, it's a large investment. Yeah. And I have cars, I have dirt bikes, but like it was just weird to me that it was such a large investment for this dinky little piece, and it was very stressful, which I'm sure you're aware of and know. And I don't know if you remember, I called you guys when I was at the ring store. I called you and Bryn and asked her ring size, so I had an idea. And then at the ring store, which I actually forgot the guy's name, but shout out to them, because the guy literally, I told him the size that Bryn had told me for just like these rings, which are obviously very different. And the guy was like, "Let me see a picture of her." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Just let me see a picture." So I like show a picture of her, and he goes, "Oh no, she's a 4, like 3 sizes smaller." And I'm like, "How did you just guess that from seeing her?" And I'm like, okay, but I'll trust you. Like, this is your job, and I don't know anything. So I proceeded and I bought the ring, and
And you panicked because it looked so tiny.
Yeah,
Like, how does
and-
that fit on a finger?
yeah. So they didn't have obviously this particular ring, and I got a special diamond, so they had to order it. So it took a couple weeks, and it came in, and I went to pick it up, and I was like, oh my god, that looks like it's for a child. Like, there's no way that's going to fit on her finger. And like, I know you can get them resized, but my biggest worry was that I'm going to get down on one knee and it's going to stop here. That's so embarrassing. So I'm like, and so I'm just like, obviously scared shitless about that. So I didn't want to, but I was like, I gotta find a way to test her ring and just look at it. So I did kind of blow it there, and then the jacket that's where the ring was. It was in because I was way too scared to take it out of I had it in a little thing, and I was like, there's no way I'm taking it out of here.
Yeah.
And so, but I was like, I can't put the whole thing in my pocket. 'Cause she's gonna see it. So
Yeah.
I had a jacket that had a zipper pocket, but I didn't want to just lay it on the. So yeah, it was really. I tend to not really get nervous about stuff, and I wasn't nervous about proposing. I was nervous about the stupid ring. So yeah, kind of blew it a little bit there, but still, it was good.
Yeah.
It
And like
worked.
looking back on things, like I said, I thought about the ring thing, but also I was with a group of my girlfriends for Galentine's Day, like 3 days before he was proposing. And one of my best friends, Sophie, she had her phone there, and I was like, oh, can I take a picture of this? And she pulled her phone away, and she's like, no. And I was like, that's weird. Sophie doesn't hide anything from me. Like, why is she taking... At this point in time, though, I wasn't thinking anything of it. And I was like, that's really strange. What is she hiding? But then after he proposed, Sophie admitted that it's because they were texting the girls to do the after party, like figuring out the after party. And like in the midst of it, and she didn't want anyone to pop up and say, oh, Kara's proposal.
I planned it. The girl she's talking about, her fiance is my best friend and was my best man, and I reached out to him to invite everyone because I didn't want a million texts on my phone, obviously. And I think I told you this about Joy's. The place we were going, it was just a bar near us. So you were there. We brought family after, and I had called them one day during work. I work from home, and they said something where they were booked that night or they couldn't do it or something like that. So I was looking for other options, and one night we're laying there watching a movie, and my phone's ringing, and it says Mount Joy, and I'm like,
It says Joy's Tavern.
oh, it says Joy's Tavern. I'm like, what's that? Like, must be spam. But I was like, oh no, I wonder if they opened up and I gotta book it. So it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I like pretended to cough a lot then and was like, I'm gonna go get some NyQuil, like I'm dying. And I like scooted off to Giant at like 9 o'clock and called Joy's back, and they're like, oh, we opened up, do you want to book it? And I'm like, yeah. So I like went, and she was like, you want me to call? I'm like, no, it's fine, you just stay on the couch, I'm just gonna
At least I offered.
So that was funny. That one scared me too, because it's not
Because
fun
I saw Joy's Tavern pop up. Like, I'm not one to like look at his phone ever, but like it's laying in front of us and it says Joy's Tavern. That's weird.
And we're very open about our phones.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we obviously know each other's passcodes, and like obviously have nothing to hide, and like that was horrible. Like I felt like I was cheating for 2 months. Like obviously I knew it wasn't, but I was like, this is guys that do that, it sucks. It's hard.
Wow, that's crazy. So, tips for all of our gentlemen who are proposing soon. Do not do anything differently than you. Do not act differently. Do not behave differently. Don't throw your coat in the backseat on the floor.
Trust
Don't
the ring
play
guy.
with the
Trust the ring guy. Do not touch the ring fingers. And get a second phone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
That's actually, I have a work cell phone. I really should have planned everything. That's an
Yeah.
awesome
I don't
idea.
ever
Burner
see
Actually,
that
phone.
one.
I should have texted from that. Honestly, now that I'm thinking of it. But
That's just a gateway to infidelity, though.
yeah.
Awesome. So you proposed, you got down on one knee, and obviously you said yes. From that point on, there was the after party. What happened afterwards? Did you start planning your wedding right away, or did you wait a little bit? What was that like?
I'm a huge planner, so the week after we got engaged, we looked at 8 wedding venues.
Wow.
All in 1 week.
Wow. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So I think
Crazy.
we're pretty. She loves the fall, and we wanted not a long engagement, but we didn't want to rush it. Take time to obviously save up the money, plan everything, make it perfect. So we pretty quickly, and again, a very easy decision, landed on October of the next year. So it gave us well over a year. We knew we wanted fall, but I was like, yeah, we'll start planning in like October of this year. And like the next day, she's like, hey, we're seeing venues. I'm like, what are you talking about? But I'm glad you did. I'm very glad
He's
you
very
did.
thankful because most of the venues we looked at, so this was February of 2022. most of the venues that we looked at only had a few weekends open in 2023 left.
For that following
For the
year.
following
Yeah.
year.
So I am very, I would
Yeah.
tuck my tail on that one. I was wrong, and I'm very glad that you did, because if you weren't planning, we probably would have got married in the backyard. So,
Yeah.
or had to push it.
But lots of planning. Like I said, I love planning. So
Was it 50-50 or was it like 90-10 or what?
I did the planning. He paid for everything. So he put the money out. I kind of said like, oh, I want to do this. How do you feel? If he agreed with me, he sent the money. So we didn't really have any issues with the planning. We agreed with most of it.
Yeah, we got all the big stuff booked pretty much immediately.
Really, yeah.
The venue, food, all that, and then we waited.
We had lots of time to like relax because
Yeah.
we got the big things out of the way, and then
Yeah.
months before, like the summer before, I started planning like the little details and stuff. But
Yeah, we almost
It was
had a
really
year of just, being engaged, and everything was booked, and we just chilled, which is nice. The first couple months were crazy, but
yeah,
the first couple months and the last couple months were crazy, but
it went really smoothly though. It
Yeah.
did.
Before we get into the actual wedding, correct me if I'm wrong though. It was either the same day in the evening or the next day you had written out the guest list and like seating chart.
we were
It
back.
was either the same day or the next
Yeah,
day.
it was at your parents' house. I think it was
forgot
that
about
Sunday. We got engaged on a Friday, right?
Yeah.
And I think we came home for dinner
Okay,
on
okay,
Sunday,
yeah.
and she had a guest list.
Yeah.
I'm like, Kara, we got engaged 72 hours ago, and the wedding's in a year and 8 months.
Yes, I
We're
did
not
do
even gonna
that. I
be friends with
forgot
those
about
people anymore.
That's good.
That also, but again, making fun of her, but that was important because we needed, when everyone knows that when you're looking at venues, you can't be like, oh, it might be 100 to 300
Yeah.
people. You have to have a pretty good idea. So that also was smart. Cause,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Rock on. So wedding day, what was it like? Tell us about it.
So our venue required us to get a wedding coordinator, and like I feel like I was just born to be a wedding planner. So like I was like, we don't need that. We're not getting that. But they required it, and it was a good amount of money. So we were a little upset about that at first. However, she was wonderful. Shout out
So
to
happy we got her.
was
shout
her
out
name?
to Crystal.
Crystal Conrad.
Crystal
Conrad.
Conrad, yes, from Tasteful Occasions. Thank you.
You rock.
She was wonderful. We talked to her like phone texting, but we only met with her in person once
Yeah.
before the night of rehearsal. So she sat there and listened to us of what we wanted, and the day of she handled literally everything. So if we didn't have that wedding coordinator, I would have had to like designate people to like do everything, and then I would have been panicking like, oh my god, are they gonna do it? But she and her assistant literally handled everything and got it spot on. So
Yeah, future couple advice, get a planner.
Get a
Because
wedding
I know
planner.
it's expensive, but definitely made the day of.
Now there's two camps. There's a planner and there's a coordinator.
Yes,
so
I was just gonna
was
say.
she both at once or?
So she was considered a day of wedding coordinator.
So is that what we're advocating for?
Yes.
We are advocating for that day of wedding coordinator. So she just talks to you, texts you, call you whenever you have questions. You meet with her like once or twice before the big day, and then she does everything the day of. So it's literally mainly like a day of type of thing.
She's like the director of the day. Then she makes
Yes.
sure
Yeah.
everything
And it
flows.
is,
Yep.
yeah. And then the day, obviously it should be stress free, but it is. I mean, we didn't do a thing.
Yeah, she not only like set up everything, but she like told us when each of us were walking down the aisle kind of thing. So she just, when we were coming in for the reception, like she was
Yep.
she was great.
She's
Yeah,
excellent.
we were very happy that we spent that money. Well, we had to spend that money, but we were happy about it.
Yeah, I see why they require it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been at a few weddings where there's no day of coordinator. And like
Yeah.
someone in the family might be helping but doesn't. Usually lands in like the photographer's seat to push things along. So share individually, share some W's and some L's from the wedding day. Some things you really thought really went well and some things that could have been a little better.
Some things I think could have went better. So I think it was a miscommunication, but our cake, we wanted it cut so that guests could have it, and only one piece was cut for us. So we had a whole cake left over afterwards, and none of our guests got to eat the cake. We did have the ice cream truck, but nobody got to eat the cake. So I was a little upset about that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole thing is still in your freezer.
Cut up
Lots of pieces in our
Crazy.
freezer.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's good that people didn't notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But another thing is I was so excited for our guest book because I had a wooden book and black pages in the middle, and I had Polaroid cameras, and everyone was going to take a picture of themselves, paste it in, and then write a little note. And we had like 180 people there, and we probably have 7 people that did it.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know. I guess maybe it was just
Crystal?
like
What happened?
Crystal. It was like off to the side in kind of a dark corner, but I feel like we should have made more announcements about it and had her like go around saying like, "Hey, do this. Like, go make sure you do this before you leave." But we saw a lot of people over there often, but I think they were just using it to take pictures and then took them home, which I do that too at weddings, but I make sure I put one in the book.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was upset about the rain for our pictures. However, a lot of the pictures got really cool with the umbrellas and stuff. So
Weather's not something you can control. Though,
Yeah.
So I would never even consider it.
yeah,
Right?
but other than that, I think things that went really well is everybody. I don't know. Everybody was in a good mood. Everything ran according to schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think.
your viewers are going to think that we just pump ourselves up here. We're saying everything's so smooth, but it really did. I mean, I was saying to her after that if, the cake and the guest book are our biggest concerns on our wedding day, that's pretty darn good. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty smooth. The rain, of course, but obviously that can't be controlled.
It was a beautiful day outside of the spritz.
Yeah,
the spritz
and
second
we
through
had
the
our
clouds.
outdoor
Beautiful
ceremony. It was really the only thing that messed up at the, it was raining during the reception, and I had to move my cigar bar downstairs. And
Where was it?
it was like when you came, like
The front entrance?
No, it was like down. If you went straight out the back where the bathrooms were, and then down those stairs, it was right there.
Where was it originally?
Oh, it would have been by the ice cream truck because there was a
Okay.
fire pit
Yeah,
there
that
and
makes
stuff too.
sense.
So I was a little bummed about that because I kind of had the the fire pit and the cigar bar envisioned. But yeah, all in all, it was pretty darn smooth. No big hiccups, and we had a little scare with bartenders. They didn't show up till what? It was pretty.
They weren't very responsive either, so they were.
Yeah, they were kind of sketchy through the whole thing. Not sketchy.
Were
but
they with
just,
the venue? Or were they?
No,
Oh,
they were.
Outside.
It was just a bartender service, and they were not super responsive. And then it was getting down to like 45 minutes before, and they still weren't there.
Our
anymore.
coordinator had to call them and was
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
"Where are you
All right,
guys?"
Crystal. You're
Yeah,
back up in the
Crystal
game.
was about to bartend.
Yeah.
Because I was starting to get stressed, and she's like, "You're fine. Worst case scenario, I'll bartend."
Yeah.
So we were fine the whole time, but they showed up, and everything was fine. But that was probably the only thing.
I think a good word of advice that I need to take for myself is like the little things that don't go well, like the cake. A lot of people, like nobody's gonna notice that besides you. Like Tony didn't even notice the cake.
Exactly,
I didn't
and
know.
he's
I had no idea.
was very involved in our
Yeah.
wedding.
Yeah.
His
I had no idea.
brother-in-law, let alone random guests.
Yeah, don't stress the small things.
She's gonna kill me for bringing it up, but
Oh, no.
on the altar, I kind of thought for like 5 minutes that she was gonna run by the look in her eyes. It turns out it was just because she's super scared of being in front of people, and she was super stressed. But I was like, oh my god.
If you would have asked him my biggest fear earlier, it would be public speaking and being in front of people, and I was like terrified going down. So that's probably why I looked like I was going to
I know,
run.
but I was
wanted
like-
to run because of that.
I don't know if you could tell for obviously the viewers. Tony married us, and he was standing there. You looked like you were going to scoot, and I was like, this is going to be embarrassing, but it worked out. She was just nervous.
Man, fun. So, we got through a lot of topics, a lot of discussion. Is there anything else that you two want to share? Encourage the viewers with that we haven't touched base on so far.
I would say make sure you make time to have fun. If you have days to take off of work, do something fun. Money always comes back. But I think fun's a really big piece of just life in general. So
I agree.
make sure you
Yeah.
do the things you love.
When you have the time, as being a couple, travel. Like you said,
Travel, we love traveling.
have fun. You can make the money back. There's a lot of years to save and stuff.
Yeah.
Do
Time
things.
doesn't come back, but money does.
That's
Cliche saying.
Yeah, when you're young and have that ability to do it, but at the same time, don't rush into a marriage or if you're getting not pressure, but you see friends getting married and stuff, just don't rush. It's a huge commitment, and I think that's something that I think divorce is too common nowadays, and it's an easy way out that people look at like, oh, if it doesn't work, we'll just get a divorce, whatever, and that I feel like that's not an option ever, that people should have. So I think don't rush, make sure it's the one, and yeah, keep it fun and keep the spark, because when you lose that, what's the point,
Yeah. And don't force anything. Like I feel like a lot of people are forcing themselves to try to find somebody just because they don't want to be by themselves, but just let it happen naturally. Like
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, going
don't
into
force it and
when Kara texted me that summer, one of my good buddies and my roommate at the time always makes fun of me for it. We were like, we're being single this year. Like, we're just gonna, chill, focus on lacrosse, have a good junior year. And like, we got to school that year, and I'm like, I'm texting this girl. I'm like really into her. And he's like, dude. So, if I guess it's corny, but when you're not looking for it, you find it. So, yeah.
I feel like some of the best relationships happen naturally.
Yes.
They're not forced.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Cory, Kara, thank you so much for joining us on the Capturing Your Love show. I'm excited to watch you two grow as a couple, and perhaps as future parents, grandparents, great grandparents, and I'm just really appreciative that you two came out. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. It's great.